Okay, in this video we're going to look at self-contradictions, tautologies, and implications. And we're going to start off with a quote by Dan Quayle, who was the 44th Vice President under the first President Bush. And the first statement is, "The Holocaust was an obscene period in our nation's history. I mean in this century's history. But we all lived in this century. I didn't live in this century." So we're focusing on one statement here. He says, we all lived in this century and I didn't. So when you think of what kind of statement that is, we can use logic to kind of categorize that. It certainly doesn't seem to make sense. The next statement is, we are all on an irreversible trend towards more freedom and democracy, but that can change. And so basically he's saying it's irreversible, but that can change. And that's another way of saying it can't change and it can change. All right, so both of the statements above are considered contradictions. And in logic, a compound statement that's always false is called a self-contradiction. A compound statement that's always true is called a tautology. And a conditional statement that is a tautology is also called an implication. Basically, so any compound statement that's always true is a tautology, but a conditional statement that's always true is called an implication. So again, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and fill in the truth table for this conditional statement, and then state if it is a self-contradiction, tautology, or an implication. Start the video up once you have filled in your truth table, and when you turn the video on, you can pause it again to compare your truth table with mine, making sure that you got every single truth value correct. So in this truth table, I'm going to save a little time, and this is a little bit of a shortcut that some of you may want to take and some of you may not feel comfortable taking. But since there are no negations here, that instead of rewriting the P and R column, I'm going to look right over here because I know an and statement or a conjunction is true when they're both true. So if I'm looking, I can just compare these two columns instead of rewriting them. So for P and R, they're both true in this first row. One's true and one's false. They're both true. True, false. False, true, false, 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 true, and false, false. Remembering conjunction is only true when they're both true. Okay, so we'll finish that. Now the Q and the R, again, without rewriting the Q and the R column, and again, if you feel comfortable doing that, go right ahead. I'm trying to save a little time and be efficient, is that I'm just going to look at the Q and the R column right here, especially since I didn't have to negate anything. I know that an OR statement is true as long as one of them is true, and it's only false when both are false. So I can go in and fill in this OR statement just focusing on the last two columns. So they're both true. One of them's true, one is true, both are false, both are true, one is true, and they're both false. So now I know I've got my conjunction and my disjunction, and my final column, my answer column, is going to be the conditional, and the conditional is only false when you have a true false. So I'm going to come down and write in my answer column, true, 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 true. Again, the conditional is only false if you have a true false, and we don't have any true falses here. So our answer column is all trues. And so not only is it a tautology, because it's a tautology anytime the answer column is all true, But when you have a conditional statement that's a tautology, that's also called an implication. So this is both a tautology and an implication. Okay, try this next truth table and see if it is a self-contradiction, a tautology, or an implication. Pause the video, fill in the values, and then check your answer by starting the video up again. Alright, after filling in the columns for negation, and then just the not P's and the Q's and the not Q, I then did the disjunction, did the or statement, and then the final column, the last column that we use, which is the answer column. The one that has the most dominance is the biconditional, and the answer column is all false, which means this is a self-contradiction. So again, make sure, check every one of your truth values and make sure that you understand how to use the biconditional, so that when you come into class you can work on some problems, and I'll walk around the classroom and help you out.